Hi guys, this is a video companion to my PDF carrot pattern, which you can find on my Etsy. I'll link it below. I'm going to be walking you guys through all of the steps, so if you want you can follow along, or if you ever get lost while you're following the PDF, you can refer to this video. I'm going to try to be really concise and timestamp everything to the best of my ability, so let's get started. The first step in this pattern is to complete the flat stitch portion in either brick or peyote, so just follow along with that in my PDF. One quick note I do want to make is the darker rows on the carrot are not symmetrical all the way around, so it gives it a little bit more of an organic feel. If you're somebody that loves symmetry, I would make the artistic decision right now to just carry those dark rows all the way around, and you will get a little bit more of a symmetrical look. Now we're finished the flat stitch portion. Your thread can be coming out of either side, but if you want to match mine completely, mine is coming out of the 8th bead in row 1. Now it's time to make this carrot three-dimensional. We're going to be using the Peyote Tube method. First, fold your beadwork in half so that the edges line up evenly. You'll see the up beads are sticking up on both sides. These are the ones we're going to stitch through. To zip it up, pass your needle through an up bead on one side, then go through the next up bead on the opposite side. Keep alternating left, right, left, and so on. Pull your thread really tight when you're doing this so that the beads lock into place. You can see I'm doing 2 beads at a time here just because I like to move a little bit quicker, but feel free to take it 1 bead at a time. And if you're super lost, there's a ton of tutorials online about this that take it really slow, so feel free to pause and go and watch one of those if you need to. Once you zip your tube all the way up, you'll notice this little gap at the top, and that's completely normal. Just pass your needle down through the bead next to the one you're currently coming out of and work your thread back up to its original position to secure that bead. Now we're going to be working the top of our carrot. For this row, there will be 8 beads total. Pick up 1 orange bead and enter the first thread bridge. We're going to continue this pattern all the way around until we have 8 beads. You'll notice the beads are now sitting horizontally instead of vertically. Pick up your 8th bead and add it to that final thread bridge to finish this row. Now we're going to position our thread for the next row, so enter the bead next to where your thread is currently exiting. So for this row we're going to be decreasing, so there's going to be 4 beads total. Pick up 1 bead, skip the next bead, and go through the one after that. You can see how the beads in this row stack nicely on top of the ones from the previous row. This is our second bead in this row. You can see where our thread is coming out of, so skip the bead next to that and enter the one after that. This is the third bead in our row, so again, skip the next consecutive bead and enter the one after that. Okay, so this is the final bead in our row. Pick up 1 orange bead, skip the next consecutive orange bead in the previous row and enter the one after that, and you should have 4 beads total now. Now we're just going to loop our needle through all 4 of those beads in the row we just added and pull tight, and you can see this really cinches everything together and rounds off the top of our carrot. Okay, so now we're going to be starting the carrot greens. So we need to pick up 1 green bead, and then we're going to be entering the bead opposite of the one our thread is currently coming out of. To find that bead, cross your thread over your work, and this will show us which bead we need to enter. Now we need to work our way back up into that green bead, and we are going to be ladder stitching on 6 more beads onto this green bead. So you will have 7 green beads total here. This is why I said in the PDF pattern to use a thin thread like a 4-pound Fireline or a thinner Nymo thread, because we have to make multiple thread passes within this stem. So we're going to work our way back down and then our way back up to the top. Now we're back at the top. So we're going to pick up 7 dark green beads and then loop back through the bead we're currently coming out of to create a bead loop. I recommend looping through this twice just to make sure it's secure. Now pick up 3 dark green beads, then go through the next consecutive light green bead. You'll repeat the same process on the opposite side. In order to work our way back down, we need to pass our needle through the first set of the 3 dark green beads we just added. Continue down the ladder stitch. Now you'll see 2 orange beads next to our current stem. We're going to go through one of those orange beads and then we're going to ladder stitch on 5 light green beads onto it. Now that we have those 5 light green beads ladder stitched on, I'm going to work back down to secure them. And then once you do that, work your way back to the top. Okay, so we're coming out of the top of our new stem, and we're going to position our thread so it's going through the middle bead of the group of 3 dark green beads from the previous stem. And then once you do that, you're going to pick up 6 more green beads to create a large loop on this stem. If your thread is coming out the opposite side, that's no problem. Just pick up 6 green beads first and then pass through that middle bead and you'll get the same effect. Loop through all 7 of these beads again, including the one that's connecting it to the other stem. This is going to make it so this stem stands up straight. Okay, so we're back to coming out of the last light green bead, and just like the other stem, we're going to pick up 3 dark green beads and then enter the next consecutive green bead. And we will repeat the same thing on the opposite side. And just work your needle through those 2 dark green beads so you can work your way back down. Now repeat this entire sequence on the other orange bead that sits next to the center stem on the opposite side. Now that our final stem is on, we're going to move our thread down to one of the bottom beads. Now that we're coming out of the bottom, we're going to be working in a round, and this time it's just brick stitch really. So to start, we're going to pick up 2 beads and we're going to skip the first thread bridge and go into the second one, just like a normal brick stitch decrease. This round will have 7 beads total. I forgot to do this round, but I recommend looping back through your first decrease another time just so it sits nicely. And now we're just going to continue on like we would with a normal single brick stitch, adding 1 bead into each thread bridge. You'll notice the first and last beads in this row aren't connected yet. To close this circle, just loop your thread through both beads like a ladder stitch to secure them. Okay, row 2 of our taper will be worked the same exact way as the previous row, except we're going to end with 6 beads this time. So again, to start, pick up 2 orange beads, skip over the first thread bridge, loop through this decrease again to secure it and it sits nicely, and continue brick stitching until you have 6 beads total. I ended up using 3 dark orange beads and 3 light orange beads in this row, but you can just continue on with the light orange beads if you prefer to keep it simpler. So now we're at the end of the row again, and we need to connect the first and last beads so that it creates a circle. So go ahead and just ladder stitch those 2 beads together. And you should have 6 beads total in this row. We are going to continue the same pattern for row 3 of the taper, except this time we're going to be ending with 5 beads total. And as always, make sure you ladder stitch your first and last bead together. And we're going to be repeating the same steps again in this row, except this time we will be ending with 4 beads total in our row. And as always, ladder stitch the first and last beads of this row together. Okay, we're almost done. This row only has 2 beads total, so pick up your 2 orange beads, skip your first thread bridge just like you're performing a decrease, and loop back through those beads so they sit nicely. So final 2 beads here. We're going to pick up 1 orange bead and then pass your needle down through the bead in the row below, and then work your way back up to the new bead you just added. You can stop here if you like the look of your carrot so far, but I prefer ladder stitching on 1 more bead. Loop through these beads at least twice just to make sure they are secure and sitting nicely together. Now we just have to work our thread back down, tie our knots, change directions a few times, and burn off our thread. Now that I've tied off my thread, it's time to attach the carrot to some hardware. I'm using these super cute stainless steel hoops. Thank you guys so much for following along and supporting my Etsy shop. If you have any questions or suggestions for other bead patterns you want to see in the future, comment down below. Happy beading! See you guys soon!